You ever have that thing where you plant a tree or a bush of some kind, maybe a fruit tree, and it's been growing for a while, and then you come by and you notice these things coming out of the bottom of it. You think, oh, is that a new tree growing? Yay! Well, it's not actually a good thing. I'm going to tell you what these are, how to identify them, what to do about them. Let's get busy. What these are coming out of the bottom of your tree are what are often referred to as suckers. And suckers are essentially the rootstock of the tree trying to send up another shoot. And there are a few reasons that it'll try to do this sort of thing. Usually has to do with some sort of stress on the tree. So if it had some sort of real significant heat stress or some sort of other damage maybe to the top of it, maybe you pruned the top of the tree way too excessively. And so what the tree does is from the root structure, it tries to send up some additional shoots to kind of keep itself alive because it's thinking, what are you doing up there? You're killing me, Larry. The problem with these is that these shoots that come up from the rootstock are going to divert energy from the rest of your tree. The part of the tree that you actually want to keep is going to get less energy diverted to it, less growth pushed up to it, because it's diverting all of its energy to growing these little whippy things. Trees that have been suckering for me the most are this nectarine, some apples, Asian pear, a couple of my citrus, my jujube. Why don't you, before we go on any further, tell me in the comments below what kind of trees have been suckering the most for you. Curious if you've got the same experience as I've had. There are two main ways that suckers will emerge from the rootstock of a tree, and I want to talk to you about both of those so you can identify it and how to deal with each of those things. Oh, and if you stay tuned to the end of this video, I'm going to show you what you can do with some of these suckers. One reason, aside from stress, why trees will sometimes sucker is because they have been grafted. And many fruit trees, for example, have been grafted. And grafting, again, is where you're having one type of wood and tree that's in the ground, comprising of the roots and the first part of this trunk. And then we graft onto that the type of desired fruiting wood. So, you know, in this case, this Double Delight nectarine has been grafted onto this citation rootstock. The rootstock it's very vigorous, it's got disease resistance and all of these things that make it great for being in the ground, and it creates kind of a support for the tree on the top. Well, the reason why this suckers is because often the rootstock will try to take the path of least resistance. And so it's easier in some cases for it to send out its stuff straight up from its own root, as opposed to forcing all of that energy up into the grafted wood, making the jump for this grafted cut. And so that could be a reason for that. Also really important reason to deal with this, because this is diverting energy away from the type of tree that you want up top. You'll notice on this tree that it's got suckers coming out from a few areas of the tree, and so we're going to have to deal with each one of these things. You may notice here, actually, as I've dug it up, that this is attached to the trunk right here. It's not coming off of the root, it's attached right here to the trunk. And so when we remove this, we want to remove any type of sucker that's coming straight from the tree as close to the trunk as we can. Oh, these ants are not happy with me. They were happy with their sucker. Okay, so you want to create as clean a cut as you can, as close to the trunk as you can. If we pull away some of this bark and stuff, we're going to see that this sucker is coming right, it's attached to the tree really low. And so what we want to do is come in right below the soil level with a nice sharp clean pair of shears and just make the cut and remove that sucker. And that way all of that energy that was coming up into the sucker is now going to be going up into the tree above. Look at all that energy that was just going into this rootstock wood that could have been going up into the canopy above. This is a great example of showing the difference between stuff above the graft and below the graft. This here is where the graft is. So you can see this bud here is above the graft. So this Hosui Asian pear, this, if we were to allow this to grow, this would grow into an Hosui and would fruit Hosui fruit. This coming from below the graft is the rootstock. And you can tell there are some differences in the leaves. It just looks different. The foliage is a bit different than the one of the fruiting wood that we want. And so what we want to do here is come in near the soil line, or if it's attached to the tree, we can see where it's attached. You want to cut it off right here. This one here is also coming from below the graft, right below the graft. So we want to cut that off as well. So any of these that are attached to the tree itself, you want to be cutting off from the tree. Now, because these are fruiting branches, but they're right next to the graft, they're so close to the ground, I don't actually want these. So you can either just pop them off, or you can come through with a pair of pruning shears and make those cuts as well if you want. Another example of a tree that I've noticed sucker a lot with the second kind is this jujube. And that second kind of suckering is where it's not happening right close to the trunk or coming off of the trunk itself, but like this jujube, even though we're over here, it's sending out a runner all the way over here. It almost looks like a weed in the middle of the orchard. Can you see that there? Tiny little thing. The tree is all the way over here, 6, 7 feet away, 8 feet away, and yet it's got its little sucker that's popped up over here. We're gonna want to remove this, and I'm gonna show you how to deal with one that's in the ground like this. The way that you want to deal with a sucker that's running off and in the ground is you want to dig up a little bit of the space in the ground, and you notice that there's some more that's trying to sucker up here, and you can either just yank it out if it's really tiny like this. This jujube can probably just pop out, I've noticed, but I just like to cut it with a nice clean pair of shears that doesn't leave a jagged cut, and so it just goes as far below the surface or as close to the soil level as you can, and sometimes you just have to rip out the rest of it. This was trying to make another jujube. Remember how I was telling you the tree wants to send up a ton of vigor through the original rootstock? Well, look at this kumquat. This kumquat has these two giant thorny spikes coming out of the top of it, reaching for the sky, ton of vigorous growth. And that is coming, if you look all the way over here, that's coming from the rootstock. Can you see those down there? And so the way I can tell that this is coming from the rootstock and not from the kumquat is, first of all, the kumquat doesn't have thorns. The second is this is the common kind, it's called trifoliate. This is a common rootstock that they use for citrus because it's really adapted. It grows really well, very vigorous, as you can see. And when it's pushing its energy into the tree, the desired tree, that's a good thing. When it sends off these suckers, this is a bad thing. And so for citrus suckers, sometimes what I'll do is if it's soft enough, I'll just pop them off with my hand. You can always use your pruning shears, but sometimes they're very vegetative and will just pop off without any issue. Let me show you how that goes. Now you can come through here with your pruning shears if you want, but there isn't a ton of space back here, and so usually these trifoliate ones will just pop off really easily like that. And so that's okay too. So I'm gonna just show you what these look like up close. You see these nasty thorns on here? If you've got citrus and you're seeing these nasty thorns on a tree that normally doesn't have thorns, then you know you're probably dealing with something below the rootstock. You should check it out. When you see it next to it, you can notice how vigorous these were compared to the tree behind it. So now what we've done is we've taken and we're telling that tree to send all of its nutrients up into the canopy of that tree to develop it further. Okay, I told you that at the end of this video, I was gonna share with you a tip on what you can do with the suckers that you had pruned out. There are two main ways to use them. The first, if you have a tree that has not been grafted, in other words, like this Lee jujube that's just a Lee through and through, all the way into the ground, what I can do is I can take this rootstock that I've pruned out and I can propagate it. I can, score this and put it in a little cup with some stuff and propagate it, and I can grow my own little Lee jujube out of this, which is pretty stinking cool. So this is not necessarily need to be thrown away or wasted. Let me tell you about the second. Okay, the second thing that you can do with pruned out suckers, if it came from a grafted tree, is you can create your own rootstock from this. This is what we took off these Asian pear. These are the Beautifolia rootstock, and so I don't know if it's in or out of patent, so I would check that before doing this. But I could then create my own rootstock and then graft on some varieties up here. Like any one of these Asian pear would work on this Beautifolia. And so you can create your own rootstock out of this just by propagating it. Cut it off, score it, put it in some medium, and create your own rootstocks. So that's another idea as well. Well, listen, we've looked at how to deal with suckers coming out of your trees. We want to make sure all of that energy is going up into the fruiting wood and not just popping up in these little rogue branches coming out of the ground. And that is going to help your trees to remain disease resistant from any damage that happens down to the rootstock, as well as diverting all of that energy up into the tree. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Busy Gardener. Would love for you to subscribe if you haven't yet. Be sure to like this video and hit the notification bell so you know about new videos. Hey, and whether you've got one piece of rogue sucker coming out of the ground or 500, until next time, stay busy.